How you doing? I'm Mike Gaddy, and welcome to the Patterson Park Podcast. I am going to tell you something I guarantee you did not know about me. I was a performer. Yes, back in college. So like 89, 90, 91, I was Mikasa. Mikasa, the drag queen. I actually was a title holder. I was Miss Zippers. Yeah, that lasted about 3 weeks, and it did not end well. However, I have always had a fascination with drag. Not to do it, God knows, like I said, not good. But watching it, seeing these performers that are creative powerhouses. So it was with total excitement that I finally got to sit down with one of Baltimore's drag sensations, Pariah Sinclair. Pariah and I talked and talked and talked. We covered everything. We covered how she's had to change. The entire drag community has had to change with COVID-19. She's learned new things. She created her own podcast. She's become her own producer and editor and videographer, and the list goes on. We talk about what it's like to become and transform as soon as she puts on her makeup and pumps and beaded gown, the ultimate Baltimore housewife. So please join me as we sit down, we talk all things drag with Baltimore drag sensation Pariah Sinclair. Take a listen. So when I started stalking you, I came across this Baltimore ultimate housewife sort of, thing that you had going on your website and on your social media accounts, and sort of how you market yourself. How did you come up with that? What was the inspiration for that?
So I would say the inspiration for that was just like what I kind of grew up like seeing on TV, because I love the Real Housewives. I guess that
which city? Because they all have different personalities.
Yes. So I would say right now, because they obviously changed, but right now I think it's Potomac is my favorite. Because I will say that season, that show, every season it's gotten better and better and better, and crazier and wilder and more delusional as the seasons go. Because I will say when that show first started.
That's saying something, because they're pretty delusional.
Yes, the first season of Potomac wasn't good at all. Like the first season was not good, but I binged it over the pandemic, and it got better every season. Uh-huh. I have a soft spot in my heart for Atlanta, but once I think it was by season 9, I kind of stopped watching. And then I love New Jersey, but once Teresa and Joe got in legal trouble, it got very sad. Too real. It was too real. But yeah, I would say right now it's Potomac. But I am excited for Beverly Hills. Do you watch Beverly Hills?
Now look, I am not a big Real Housewives fan. However, when my husband is watching the news, that means he's actually watching one of the Real Housewives. And I will say that I'm an event photographer. I make my living normally shooting events across the United States. And I was shooting a plastic surgery convention called the Aesthetics Show in Las Vegas years ago. And I was up on a chair, doing a crowd shot, and I felt someone grab my ass. And I turned around and I looked down, and there's Lisa Vanderpump. And I said, "Lisa Vanderpump, you just grabbed my ass." And she said, "Yes, baby, I did."
Honestly, I feel Ryan, my boy self, is 25, but Pariah is like a 35, 40-year-old woman.
So you add age when you become Pariah. How else does your personality change?
Yeah, I would say Ryan is a good medium of a good balance of introvert and extrovert, but Pariah is extrovert. She's totally outgoing, totally just down for whatever. Bitchy, shady. I feel like every gay man has that bitchy and shadiness in them. But when I'm in Pariah, it's just cranked all the way up. Because I would say for me, my drag persona is an exaggeration of everything, of age, wealth, everything. Everything everything is exaggerated with Pariah. So yeah.
And same with the Real Housewife franchise. Those are all super exaggerated too.
Exactly.
To the point, well, I mean, I met Lisa Vanderpump at a plastic surgery convention where they were doing liposuction on the convention floor. So, I mean, this is a different culture than just,
it's excess. So that's what all that, it's excess, yes.
Yeah. Well, how long does it take for you to get into the pariah character, meaning putting on the makeup, putting on all the costuming?
I would say it would be anywhere from 2 to 3, like 90 minutes to 3 hours. It really depends on the gig. My sweet spot is like 2 hours, like two and a half hours. That's like my sweet spot to get ready.
Do you find yourself like, oh my God, I only have an hour and a half left?
All the time, yeah. Because I always try to not to rush, but I always end up rushing because I don't like when I do my makeup. I like to like watch TV or like listen to like podcasts. Like I'm just like what's the word? Just being distracted by something. So I always, especially for brunch, because I'm not a morning person at all. So if I have to get up before 11, it's not good.
Well, I don't think you can be a drag queen really and be a morning person.
Mm.
I mean, I think very quickly you would become a non-morning person because your hours when you perform. I mean, I've seen shows go on at closing time, and sort of as the after party.
But yeah, Baltimore is interesting because I would say, especially in the last last like 4 years, the brunch culture has like exploded in Baltimore. Just for a variety of factors. I guess because like there are so few queer venues in Baltimore. So we kind of had to go to the restaurants, to the straight restaurants to make money. And also brunches more than not or more money for performers.
But how does performing in a straight venue differ from performing in one of the gay bars or gay venues around the area, and not just Baltimore, Washington, and Philly? And
I would say honestly, like it might be surprising, but like I would say, let's just take a brunch for instance. They're kind of more not accepting, but they're there for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously, if a straight woman is going to a brunch, or straight people going to a brunch, they're there to see a show. They're obviously sometimes they get wild, but more than not, they're there to like give you attention. Versus like if you're going to a bar, depending if it's just like a free show, sometimes the people there are not really paying attention to you. So, but I mean, it also depends on the show. So like if it's like a night show and it's like ticketed.
Yeah, they're paying attention to Grindr.
Exactly, paying attention to Grindr. They want to get drunk. Yeah. And I'll say I love doing night shows. Night shows are like very my bread and butter. But I don't like doing a night show at a solo gay club where it's like a dance party and then there's drag in between. Don't like doing that shit at all. Don't like it.
That's interesting. Interesting. When you are in one of these venues and you have hecklers, do you ever get hecklers? Do you get people yelling insults as you're performing?
No, not really. I mean, I would say like the worst is people that like don't pay attention.
Right.
So that'll be sometimes like just people are on their phone. They'll be like mostly it's like a straight guy that doesn't want to be at the brunch. Then I just take the phone. Either I literally take the phone out their hand and put it face down, or I'll take it and just go like keep performing and then give it back. But usually me taking it, putting it face down, gets you get it.
It gets the message across.
Yeah.
One thing about being a drag queen, I guess you don't have to be subtle on anything. Or tactful.
Not at all, no.
Maybe I am in the wrong.
Yeah, because that's the thing with drag is that you can definitely get away with a lot more when you're in it. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing it?
It'll be 5 years in July.
Now in Baltimore, do we have like the drag families and the drag houses and drag mothers like you see?
Yeah.
What are some do you belong to a house? What are some of the different
houses? So I do belong to a house, but it's like I guess it's not your traditional drag house. It's called the House of Death Glam, and they're more so I am definitely like the more traditional drag in the house. Like the house is more alternative, very goth. My drag mom is a club kid. She did a lot of like, she used to live in Dallas, Texas. So she did a lot
Dallas is wild.
She did a lot of pop-up gigs, a lot of like BDSM stuff. There's a lot of wild shit in Dallas.
And this is your grandmother?
No, my drag mom.
Your drag mother. I heard grandmother. I was like,
no, this is my drag mom. So she's more on the producer side, the more club kid, event producing side of drag. So she came to Baltimore a little bit after I started drag. And so first we started like a friendship, and she came to me because she wanted to start like warehouse parties in Baltimore. Unfortunately, that's very hard to do in this city, so we never eventually got to do that. But there was this brunch called Goth Brunch that we did probably like 3 years ago at Rock of the Venus in Baltimore. It was great. It was like literally the stuff you would see at a night show, like the wild, crazy shit, but at noon on a Sunday. It was great. And we've done other events. The Eagle, I had a show at Sidebar, a monthly show, and then we would do House of Death Glam shows. Our last show before COVID, it was like a Jerry Springer, Maury inspired show. It was called Who's Your Baby Daddy? So we do just like shit like that. Just very wild, just kind of, what's the word? Just like tongue-in-cheek type of shit, like satire type of shit.
So who is your baby daddy?
You'll have to come to the next show to find out.
Oh, I will. This is right up this is in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things when you're watching mainstream drag, and by that I mean RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes.
One of the very first questions they ask is, "Do you sew?" So I guess my question for you would be, do you sew? Do you do your own costumes? Do you go out and buy costumes? And this is expensive.
Yeah, so I do not sew. That's my next thing I want to do is get a sewing machine, because I live in a one bedroom apartment, so I don't have the space. I didn't have the space in my old place. Luckily now I do have more space, so that's the next goal, is to get a sewing machine. But I can hand sew. And I also like stone and like accessorize and then
glue gun,
dragify my costumes. But glue gun. I do. I have like, luckily I have like designers that I work with that I collaborate on stuff.
So who do you work with?
This is amazing designer in Baltimore. His name is Egypt Chloe. He's made me a couple outfits. He's a male performer. And he makes outfits for a lot of the performers in Baltimore. Her name is Miriam Paul. She makes me, I wear a lot of stuff by her.
With COVID happening and you being in live venues and relying on live performances for, you to do your art, how has COVID changed and impacted how you have had to perform over the last year and a half?
Yeah, so COVID is definitely like, we've had to shift from, live in person to digital, to doing Facebook Live, to doing Zoom shows, to doing, then to doing like pre-recorded content. So, in literally a week, we had to become our own, videographer, editor, producer, director, all of that. So, it was definitely a shift. And I think, it was just a lot. But I definitely learned that digital drag, I guess doing pre-recorded content is not really my thing, at least video wise. I definitely, I have my own podcast. So we need to talk, and we'll talk about that later. But I started that in like November, December. So that's definitely more of my thing. And I would say COVID has made me realize what I really want to do with drag, which is like to be more of like a personality, so to say, a talk show host in a way.
Like an Oprah.
Like an Oprah, yes.
So Oprah is as a Real Housewife. If Oprah was a Real Housewife.
Yes.
I got it. Okay. So that leads me to my second question, which is, a lot of artists have told me that at first COVID froze them in their tracks. They didn't know what to do. And then they began to realize it was actually an opportunity to learn new things and to branch out into new things, which they can then incorporate down the road. Has it just been a pain in the ass, or has it also let you be creative in ways that you wouldn't have thought of unless it had happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely allowed me to be more creative. Like, I would definitely have learned more about like audio, like video, all of that editing. I'm not the best with video editing, but I've gotten better since having to do my own videos. Yeah, so I definitely have learned a lot through COVID, and definitely know how to just up my content a lot. Yeah, because literally COVID made me literally get a mic and get was it a ring light, and maybe get all of that. I didn't have a tripod or a ring light or any of that before COVID. So
right.
Yeah.
And so you do your own podcast.
Yes.
You do. You have a whole bunch of stuff that you do. We'll get to all of that in a second. But one thing I really wanted to ask you about is the driveway drag, because that happened like within a very not so long after COVID hit. The Queen started doing these driveway drag shows, and from an outsider looking in, it seems like it has been a huge success.
Yeah, and I will say, so I don't organize them in Baltimore. My good friend Yvonne Michelle, she organizes them with her event company called Sad Brunch. But I will say, before her, there was a queen in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, called Michelle Levine, and she kind of brought that into the forefront. But yeah, I mean, driveway drag shows have been very, very good, because it's literally bringing us directly to the people. Obviously, safely, of course, but yeah, it's a very more intimate experience, because a lot of people before COVID, they didn't have the time to go to a drag show, or maybe they didn't feel comfortable being in a full crowd of people seeing a drag queen, or that they have children, so they can't go to a drag show.
Now, a lot of the projects that you work on are really family friendly, surprisingly so for a drag, entertainer. Typically, you think of drag entertainers as being, fairly risque. Even RuPaul, has a, I would say a PG-13 rating or higher, on some of those shows. I guess my question is, has more family friendly drag shows, and I'm thinking in particular, you're doing this this drag show at the Baltimore Jewish Museum, which is drag queen story time. Is that right?
Yes, that's drag queen story time for the Baltimore Jewish Museum. Obviously, that'll be virtually. That is May 4th. But yeah,
virtual.
Yeah, virtually. But it is ironic that because I am not your typical family-friendly drag queen. Like my stuff, a lot of the mixed performances I do are not family-friendly. But for me, I want to be as well-rounded of an entertainer as possible. I want to be accessible to really everybody. So yeah, and I do the drag queen story times, and then we do driveway drag shows. A lot of them, I did an 11-year-old's birthday party a month ago. So yeah, I've done kind of everything from the risque to sitting down in front of 2-year-olds and reading a book.
How was your family growing up? Are they accepting of what you do? Is it a problem? Do you mind talking about it?
No, I don't mind at all. Yeah, I would say I feel like once I became a drag queen, they were kind of over it, because I came out to them several times. I was bi, then I was gay, and then I told them I was queer, and then I was a drag queen. So it was a lot of coming out to them. Because I feel like once I started making money and started to actually go somewhere with it, then they kind of were they kind of understood it. But I think it took them literally 4 or 5 years to realize how big drag is. I don't think they understood how mainstream and big drag is, and how lucrative it can be. Right. So yeah, but they've come to shows, they've seen me live, so yeah.
So you have a bunch of projects going on right now. You mentioned your podcast. You have some shows going on a regular basis around town. Tell me about your podcast and tell me about the shows that you're doing.
Yeah, so I have my podcast, We Need to Talk with Pariah Sinclair. So when this episode comes out, season 1 will be done with. I have done 20, I think it'll be 21 episodes, which I'm very, 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 very proud of because I've done it all myself. So the podcast, I interview different queer icons in Baltimore. So I've interviewed drag queens, I've interviewed artists like rappers and singers. I've interviewed the LGBT liaison for the mayor's office. So a different variety of queer people that are really paving the way in Baltimore. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So what is some advice you can give anyone that wants to like host or show produce now?
I mean, honestly, not everyone is a host.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is a host, even though as gay culture, we are confident people. We are confident until the world ends. We will still be confident.
Going into delusional, yes.
Right. The world can be coming to an end and we will still be screaming Britney Spears.
And tell me a little bit about the shows that you're doing.
Yeah, so right now I host the Drag Race viewing parties at the Manor. So season 13 just ended, and whenever All Stars starts up again, I'll be doing that. So that'll be every Friday at the Manor. I host my own brunch at Of Love and Regret. That is starting up on May 23rd. You can get tickets at olrbmore.com. So that's every fourth Sunday. I'm in DC once a month for bingo at the Wonder Garden. So I'm doing
bingo.
Bingo at the Wonder Garden. Drag bingo.
The people who attend, are they like your little old bingo ladies or?
No, they're so like. So I used to do, before COVID, I did a bingo at Golden West in Hamden. We did that twice a month, and it'll be a whole variety of people. So we did have like a couple groups of like old ladies. And then, but usually it's like, I would say like ages like 20s to like 40s, a good range of people.
One thing I have learned doing this podcast and talking to all the different entrepreneurs, activists, and artists and creative people that we've done over the last several weeks is how adaptable they are, especially Pariah Sinclair. She has learned to do her own podcast. She's learned to do her own video editing and sound and producing, and the list goes on. I'm not done talking to Pariah, but I didn't want to do another traditional podcast episode, so I'm doing something a little bit different. If you haven't already done so, head over to our Patterson Park Podcast Group Facebook page and join, because then on Wednesday, you'll be notified when I do the Pariah Sinclair Extra Special Bonus. It's not going to be long, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and we're going to sit back down with Pariah and talk about a few things that I left out of this episode. So please join us this Wednesday for an extra special bonus. We'll stream the video up to Vimeo and YouTube if you miss it live. It'll also be on all of our audio channels. Meanwhile, have a great couple weeks. We'll talk to you soon.